But I'm hanging out with a real cool guy today, Nick Breiner. We're talking about, look, deputy chief from consultant all the way down to a big-time profesor, as they would say in the Spanish world, and everything and anything, and now hanging out actually with the biggest, the most elite security guard force company in the world, which is really exciting. That transition was awesome, but he's here with us today.
Let me tell y'all out there a little story, man, and it goes a little something like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls and children of all ages, it is yours truly once again, the corporate security translator and the author of So You Want to Get Into Corporate Security, coming out in stores June 30th. And when I mean stores, it's really Amazon. But I'm hanging out with a real cool guy today, Nick Breiner. We're talking about, look, deputy chief from consultant all the way down to a big-time profesor, as they would say in the Spanish world, and everything and anything, and now hanging out actually with the biggest, the most elite security guard force company in the world, which is really exciting. That transition was awesome, but he's here with us today. And big-time Nick is going to share with us his story. What's up, man? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic, Carlos, and I am so honored to be here. What a privilege to be with the corporate security translator, man.
Oh, get out of here.
I am stoked.
Oh, don't be. I'll get it all rosy red and stuff, man. I haven't been red like this since my wife picked me up in the corner one time in the date. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, man. Great to see you. Look, this is so exciting, man. Look, your resume speaks for itself, and it's really cool for the folks that are transitioning from the law enforcement, emergency services, federal careers, military, to kind of see this path, because it's not a normal path, man. You've put in a lot of work. In one of the key things here that I've noticed is that a lot of people, they just want to transition. They do their 25 years. They kind of just go slow and do their 25 years, and how they want to land a big gig, right? But not you, man. You were involved. You were doing multiple things at the same time, Air National Guard, man. So look, I could say a lot of things about you, man. I think you're an awesome guy, but I'm going to let you do it. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself, and let's get this party started.
Yeah, I would love to, man. And what a great intro, and you're way too kind.
Oh.
I try to be modest, as my friends know, and as my wife tells me I'm not, but regardless, my path was a little bit different, but just to kind of sum it up, I have over 25 years in law enforcement, about 18 years military, about a dozen years security consulting, another 5 or 6 years adjunct professor and teaching and consulting and all kinds of different stuff that I did. So while a lot of parts of my career were very similar to my peers making this transition, a lot of things I did were very different. And when I tell somebody who's getting ready to transition, as you said, they do their 25 years, they're looking to land that big gig. My transition started 25 years ago. It started, man. It started 25 years ago. It didn't start when I had 24 years, 6 months.
Right.
And so often, we'll talk more, but so often that's what I see my colleagues doing, and they wind up in that position, 24 years, 6 months. Hey, Nick, where can I go? What can I do? What skills can I transfer? What kind of certifications would you recommend? Should I go back to school? And I started thinking about that 25 years ago. But I had a great law enforcement career, retired as an acting deputy chief. As I said, still in the military, lieutenant colonel at the Air Force Air National Guard. And as you introed me, I landed a gig in the corporate world with the biggest private security provider at a technology giant. So I'm really, really happy.
It's really incredible. And I get to interview a lot of people, and some people do some things on the side, man, but you were like, go, go, go. You knew exactly, I think, what the future was going to hold for you, and you knew how hard you had to work. And you're right. A lot of people don't know that it takes a lot of steps from the get-go, from 20, 25 years ago. There's folks that they get free, let's say college. They get free college education if they work for a police department, and they never use it. And then all of a sudden, they're a year out, and they're like, okay, maybe, if I want to work for a giant tech, well, there's a good chance you might need a college degree, because you're competing against doctors, right? PhDs and masters when they're applying for those kinds of gigs. But you had that. What was it in your mind, man, to set you up in that kind of sense of not urgency, but almost urgency at 25 years ago when you're like, okay, it's going to come to an end. This party's going to come to an end. And what am I going to do afterwards? Did you just know somebody that went through this process 25 years ago? And you're like, all right, I got to go figure this out.
It's probably 25 years ago. I didn't know what the desired end state was going to be. I didn't really know what the goal line was, but I knew that I had this desire to constantly improve, constantly learn, constantly develop myself. And that probably started at home. My dad was a Marine, and, just discipline and education and work ethic was something that's in my DNA. So 25 years ago, while I didn't know what the ultimate goal line would be, I knew that I wasn't never going to stagnate. I was never going to stagnate. And, we can get into this more deeply, but I graduated the police academy in December, and in January, I enrolled in community college. So I get out of the police academy. They put me on midnights, right? I'm a young cop, or whatever I was, 22, 23 years old. I had 0 college credits, 0. When I became a cop. I graduated the academy in the middle of winter. I go on the road. The snow's 5 feet deep. I signed up for community college. I'm working nights, getting off 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, going to school. And I just went to school. It seems like almost my whole career, my whole life, I went to school,
Wow.
That was just one of those decisions. Yeah, man. So I knew there was more. I knew there was always more to the career. I knew there was always more to achieve. I knew there was always more to life, and that public safety career would come to an end. It might be 20, 25, 30 years, 35 years. You may leave as a patrolman. You may leave as a chief. You don't know.
Right.
But I was going to be prepared for whatever came my way.
Man, it's really awesome that you had that in mind, and thank God for your dad and whoever dropped that DNA on you, man, because that's good. Sometimes I feel the same way too. It's almost like I was hustling while hustling, and trying to get better in a better position, wherever life was going to take me, and that's really cool. Let me ask you a question. We've talked a little bit, but I didn't get deep into your family life. Were they supportive at that time? Because wife and stuff, and kind of going through all these things. Did you have that back then when you kicked off? Because one of the biggest complaints that I get is that, man, I just don't have time. Man, my family life is just too crazy. Hey, man, I hear you, Carlos, but I hear you, and excuse. So y'all listen up out there. I'm looking at you right in the camera. Stop with the excuses. So tell me about that, man.
Yeah. So, obviously, family situation changes throughout your life, throughout your career, like it does for everyone. Yeah. And that also happened with me. So when I became a police officer at the tender age of 22, I was still living home with mom and dad, right? Yeah. Mom and dad had not, neither one of them had graduated high school, but they valued education. They knew what was important. They valued hard work. My dad was a truck driver, 40 plus years, got up 2 o'clock in the morning to go drive a big rig. Wow. But yeah. So first going on the police department, and then once I was on, advancing through the ranks, educating myself, doing this professional development, tremendous amount of support at home, tremendous amount of support. Yeah. And then, as your life changes, you have a significant other down the road, you get married, you have kids. There's a lot of ups and downs, as you know, and it's always hard. It is hard to maintain that momentum at some points, Yeah. That's what's so difficult. And you brought up a great point. People give you every excuse in the book. There's no time. I got 5 kids. I got 12 kids in college. I got 3 ex-wives. Everybody has the same 168 hours in a week. Right. And if you want to be successful, you can find time, right? And you can take time off the phone or video games, or if you're on Netflix, there's time to do an online class, right? There's time to study for a certification. There's time to listen to the Corporate Security Translator podcast, 30 minutes a week, and get some insight.
Yeah. You're right. Sometimes, I got in that rut too, man, because you kind of get into a point, but I'll tell you, my wife has been great at pushing me along. Like, hey, you got this. Just another class you could do when I was, going to school. Same thing with this stuff. What keeps me alive and going is a lot of the folks who come back to me and say, man, what you're doing is a good thing. And because, this, everything that we want to do in life takes away from your family time, and time is everything, as you know, as you get older. But I just got out of a podcast with a gentleman that I work with, Rhett Waddell, and he was talking about family and stuff. And one of the things that he had to focus on when he was thinking about his second career, he came out of the military, was talking to his wife. I mean, his wife put up with him for 20, 25, 23 years, I think it was, in the military. And he's like, well, I'm about to drag her through another 15 years of a second career. Let me make sure that she's still on the bus with me, and we're doing the right things, because family's so important. And your transition now, as you were transitioning from kind of the law enforcement background and you know the other things that you were doing on the side, what was that like? Were you reaching out to companies? Did you just throw in your resume out there? Were you making connections? Tell me a little bit about that. What that was like.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It's very appropriate you bring it up, because we're still in the midst of this COVID pandemic, and it's such a serious situation to all the first responders, all public safety officials, both at the office and at home. And I just happened to hit my 25-year mark right in the middle of the pandemic.
Wow.
So I had, yeah. And, you know, so I was working in the police department and working in emergency management. And in large part, I was dealing with COVID. 90% of my day, I was dealing with the COVID response. And at the same time, I hit my 25-year mark, and I knew I wanted to transition. So it was very, very difficult. But what I did do was start making contact with some corporate recruiters. I had the privilege to know a few personally, and I got them on the phone, and I said, hey, you know, what's going on? Like, I know the job market now is completely different in the midst of COVID. Companies are not expanding. They're closing offices. They're not releasing new office space.
Right.
But I did speak to some recruiters, and that gave me some insight. But one of the most important things I did was every morning I woke up 4:35 a.m. before I went to the gym. I got on whatever job site, whatever job board it was, LinkedIn, Indeed, et cetera, and I scoured the postings for corporate security jobs that I would be a good fit for, what I thought I'd be a good fit for, or the jobs that I was interested in. I studied those descriptions. I studied the qualifications for those jobs. I studied the KSAs, right? The knowledge, skills, and abilities that were required for that particular job. And as you know, they vary so much depending on physical, cyber, information security, whatever specialty you want to get into.
Yeah.
While the job market was somewhat stagnant at the height of COVID, there were still job postings and there was research to be done. So that became one of my side hustles, researching jobs. Yeah. So, you know, it's funny too, because you said you and I have been hustling since the old days. We were hustling before Gary Vee put a name on it.
Right. And I love
hustling.
Vaynerchuk, man. Vaynerchuk, man. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure at Vaynerchuk on this one, but we're big fans of him. And the funny thing is, I think it became like a part-time gig for you, didn't it? Because if you're getting up that early, man, and you're hustling before the hustle, you were hustling even before the hustle started, man.
I woke up the hustlers. I got up so early. I would call hustlers and say, "Hey, time to get up, Gary." But,
I love it.
Yeah. It did become, in large part, a job. So looking for another job, looking to transition, is a job in and of itself.
That's true.
What you don't do is have your vanilla, plain, one-size-fits-all resume and just shoot it off continuously. You don't do that. You don't do that, as you know, and you've talked about this so many times.
Well, I'm going to clap it up for that one. I got to use this thing. I bought it. I got to use it. So
use it, brother.
So I got to clap it up for that one, because it is true, man. There's often times, Nick, that I'll get a call from somebody and they send me one resume, and I tell them, I say, hey, this is a good start. Make sure that you're looking at the job description. You match the job description to your resume, this and that. You got to translate it back and forth. So you're probably going to come out of there with about 15 to 20 resumes that, you know, for the different jobs that you're applying for. And they're like, what? I said, look, you're competing against the best of the best. You know, the company that I work for, every job that comes up, it's 150 to 200 resumes that come across. And you're competing against the best.
The recruiters I was speaking to were at large firms like the ones that we're associated with. Yeah. They were telling me 200 to 300 applicants.
Oh, man.
200 to 300 applicants. And that first in, first out kind of triage system with the bots that are reading your resume. Right. If you're not in that first batch, 20, 25 resumes, if you're number 220, they never even get a look at your resume.
Right. I mean, that's key.
You know?
It's key for people to know and understand. I mean, those analytics, right, that are out there today, looking at the keywords. What I usually tell people too, Nick, and I'll throw this in there, is that you look at a job description. If they say the word risk like 100 times within a job description, you might want to put risk a lot of times in your resume as well, because it's collecting the words from the job description, trying to match it to a bunch of resumes that are there. So what you were doing was key, though, man. But you were getting up and you were being persistent and consistent on what you were trying to do every single morning, and you didn't give up. What I try to tell people too, man, you might have to apply at 100 gigs these days. You might have to do 200 gigs, and that's okay. And you might have to go through 10, 15, 20 interviews, and that's okay, because you're learning through every single interview process. Because you know, if you're in law for 25, 30 years, there's a good chance that your interview process was different. You had to take some kind of testing, which allowed you to be in a group of, let's say, sergeants that may be able to pick up sergeant when a spot comes open. And where in the corporate world, you really have to sell yourself. And I'll tell you, as a private police officer as well, I used to be horrible at selling myself. I don't know. How do you feel about that, man?
Absolutely. It's not something we're good at. And you know, I hate to put people in boxes and label people,
right?
But some guys are oversellers and some guys are total undersellers. Some people don't sell themselves at all, and it's either timidity or it's shyness or modesty. And other folks, when they walk in the room, you know, their chest is stuck out, and it's the oversell, right? Yeah. But absolutely right. If you haven't interviewed and you haven't translated your value into bullet points first in a resume, and then be able to articulate that verbally in an interview, because I believe this, and by no means do I have the best resume around, but my resume gets me through the door or gets me the interview. Yeah. Then you have to show up and land it. You have to show up and land the job. And you know what? You could have 12 doctorate degrees on your resume, and you come in for the interview, and you know, you can't articulate.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. So going back a little bit, sell yourself by being humble.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like a big thing. If you can sell yourself by being humble and being appreciative of the moment and the situation you're in, you're going to come off so much better than the I know it all. Because what happens is that all of a sudden you end on the other side where you're the I know it all person, and you don't want that. Yes. So that's that.
Let me jump in, Carlos, because there's a great thing. I went for the in-person interview for the position that I'm in right now. And the hiring manager said to me, my biggest concern is somebody I can hire who's relatable, a human being who's relatable. That's what he was looking for. Somebody who's going to be a regular person, humble,
a human being.
A human being that they can deal with on a daily basis, just regardless of your resume, be it off the charts or marginal.
Yep.
He said, I'm looking for somebody relatable.
Man, the other side of me talks about leadership a lot, and as a lot of people know, and I'm even wearing a little shirt here, but my old little jacket from Orlando, Florida. I spent a lot of years with the Disney company, and I always say, like you, the D in Disney is in my DNA. Your dad's DNA was in you. That's why you did what you did. But a lot of it is, I want people with leadership qualities. I can teach everything else. I want people that can lead, man, and be a good human being, and be humble and be vulnerable when you know that sometimes you got to be vulnerable, but be okay with that. Be comfortable in your own skin. All these things that you're talking about.
One of the greatest job descriptions that I read while I was doing my transition, a very large company posted a qualification, and it said, leadership without ego.
That's it. That's it.
How awesome is that?
Yeah. How do you
without ego?
That's the kind of people that, we're looking for today. I know that's what I look for when I hire, and I hire a heck of a lot of people for this awesome company. You go on LinkedIn, you can find out what I do for a living, but I have that ability, but that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for leaders. I'm not looking for, and in my team, I got everybody from everywhere. I got special forces, military. I got prior law enforcement. I got a guy from NASA, came from NASA. I mean, they're really cool asset protection folks that came around. So a lot of cool stuff. But listen, it's tight. Time is tight, but I gotta get more out of you. So here we go.
Yeah, let's do it.
So now you transition. You kind of in the corporate world. What was it? What was it? Maybe a thing or two that you were just like, man, this is a little different. Nobody told me about this, or I should have known about this, or studied that, or do this. Well, give me a couple things for the folks.
Yeah. So obviously the stark contrast between public and private sector is tremendous. If you're in a public sector job, law enforcement, emergency management, military, most likely you're not looking at the same things that a private sector manager, a private sector director is looking at day to day, right? Your statistics are totally different. If you're looking at arrests or car stops or summonses, those metrics have to be translated, as you know, to the corporate world. So what does productivity mean? And it's a whole different definition. And this is what I've told some of my peers who reached out to me since I've retired. Hey, what have you learned in the new gig? You've been there a little while. What's going on? Well, I can tell you this. I learned in the public sector, if you show up and just kind of look good, for lack of better explanation, if you look good, show up, look like you know what you're doing, you can do all right. And you can bluff your way by, and you can fake it till you make it. In the private sector, they're not looking at that exterior kind of fog. You can't you can't bluff it.
Smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors, brother. You can't bluff it. Okay, you walk in there, and they're not looking at the kind of shoes that you wore today. They're not looking at what kind of watch you're wearing. They're looking at, what did you produce today? What did you bring to the table? They want hard facts. They want data, analytics, right? Everything is analytics.
Yeah, that's it. Especially with the companies today. The companies today are very data driven, man.
Data, exactly.
That's all they want to know. And if you're looking for those things, as you kind of try to transition in, that's something that you should focus on. You should be calling Nick right now and be like, hey man, what should I focus on as I transition? What are some of the things that I need to think about? Really, data is everything? What is it that you're measuring compared to what we used to measure, right? And I'd be asking those questions because I got to interview for the job sometime soon. I want to let them know that, look, sir, ma'am, I know that we measured, traffic stops. But I'm very interested in measuring the capability of the officers out in the field, the events that they're going to, or the incidents that they're going to, how we are better processing your access control systems, how we're better dealing with, showing up by using cameras instead of using human beings in incidents, because I want to lower your cost and your budget. I mean, like all those things,
Bingo,
right?
Bingo. Cost, budget, bottom line. That's how you have to be thinking. Right? Time is money. Overtime is money. Can a piece of software or piece of hardware replace a person? Right? That 168-hour salary for a security officer position, can that be replaced with a couple of cameras that are force multipliers? Absolutely.
Wow, good points, man. Good points.
Yeah, man.
I like that. So you come in and now you're learning. You're in the lingo now, man. You're learning the corporate lingo and the ideas. Now every business is a little bit different, and people always ask me, do I get into just directly to a corporate security gig where you're directly a full-time employee, or should I try a third-party vendor or a contract guard force vendor? And it's funny because I usually tell them what you're going to learn if you go through a contract guard force vendor is the depth of the business that you need to learn to come into the FTE. And I think it's a great opportunity for people to jump into those positions, learn a heck of a lot, and then who knows, sometime in the future, go somewhere else. Now, not everybody's like that. I have a buddy of mine that's been in now for 27 years with another major contract guard force company that some other great company just purchased. But he loves it. He loves it to the point that he would never let go. And I think there's a fit for everybody else. So what I usually here's the point I was trying to get to, is that I usually tell people that you need to go talk to a Nick. You need to go talk to a Carlos. You need to go talk to somebody in the biopharmaceutical. You need to go talk to somebody in the hospitality industry, hotels. You need to go talk to somebody in all these different businesses, see if it's a fit for you culturally and everything else that you want to do, man. What do you think?
Yeah, Oh, 100%, 100%. And you bring up a great entry point with the contract vendor. Okay. When you identify a company that you want to work with, big pharma, big tech, manufacturing, supply chain, whatever it is, you have to remember those businesses, their core skills, right? Their core business is usually not security. Security is an ancillary need. So company like the one that you work for, what they'll do is give most of that responsibility to a contract vendor company. They'll have in-house folks like Carlos who oversee and manage and liaison. But generally, a lot of the people that are operationalizing it day to day, getting the work done day to day, are from a contract vendor. So you can go that route, get hired by a vendor, and still wind up with a big Silicon Valley company, with a big pharma company.
Oh yeah, and they pay well, and you get the same benefits as, a lot of times as the folks work in the big company, and ultimately the culture is the same because it gets translated a little bit, from the contract guard force to the company you're working with, and I think it's a great opportunity to learn the business and learn well, and be a human being, be a human being today.
You said culture too. It is huge because remember now, this is for all our peers, all our colleagues. If someone is watching this podcast right now, they are taking the first step or the 50th step in their transitional process.
Yeah.
When you go for that in-person interview or that Zoom interview, they are trying to match you up with their culture. Are you a good fit for the culture? Right? Sure, degrees and certifications and medals and all the stuff on the resume. Like you said, you got Green Berets working for you. That's great. Is that guy or girl a good fit in our office, in our culture? Are they going to be relatable? Are they going to be somebody that we want to work with? I know that guy or girl, landed in Afghanistan and did all this great stuff and has 10 silver stars. Does that mean they're going to be okay having a cup of coffee with me, right? In the kitchen when we're talking about a project?
I'm more like a bourbon guy, but I could have a cup of coffee with you too, man. However you want to roll, I roll. I roll the same. I'm Brazilian, so we do coffee a lot. That's what we do now.
Right on.
Well, but listen, big time, Nick. This is how fast it goes. We got like 2 minutes. 2 minutes left. 2 minutes left on our 30-minute chat.
It's crazy.
I know. Well, we'll do it again. We'll do it again,
yes,
man.
Let's do it again.
There's a lot. We can focus on other things as well, and we'll reset it and we'll get it going. But hey,
let me leave. I got some parting thoughts.
And that's it. If you can do that for me, that'll be awesome.
Everyone who's listening, everyone who's taken that step to take the time and listen to your podcast, they're already on this journey, and they're dedicating time, which is, as you said earlier, the scarcest, most valuable resource. If you could be playing catch with your kids out in the backyard, but you're listening to this podcast, it means you're dedicated to making the transition, right? So you have that personal philosophy already, all right? You need to embrace that continuous improvement, continuous education philosophy. Embody it. If you're at 1 year on the job, 5, 10, 20, 25 years on the job, always be thinking about continuous improvement in education. Research the jobs that you're interested in. Go on those boards, that LinkedIn, that Indeed. Find Carlos's job. Look up Carlos's job title and say, when they hired him, what did the job posting look like? What were the KSAs? What are the qualifications that he had to bring to the table? And those are your yard markers, right? That's your yardstick right there.
Yeah. Man, knowledge, skills, and abilities. That's big, man. Hey, Nick, I appreciate your time. That's really awesome that you were able to cut this out. And that's the stuff that you do too. So thank you for giving back to the community. There's a lot of folks that are looking for just a little bit of a hint or two that just gets them through, man, the next interview or something else. And you gave it to them. And I appreciate that, sir. You are so kind.
It's an honor and a privilege.
All right. Well, listen, everybody, we're going to leave it here. Look at all the stuff that we covered. I got notes upon notes here. Look at nobody ever looks at this pad, and there it is. That's a lot of notes. But we cover a lot of things going through that transition right when COVID hits. We covered that. You talked about the KSAs, man. That's a beautiful thing about selling yourself, but being humble at the same time while you do it. You're talking about measuring differences, understanding costs, budgets, and what the company that you're going to be working for really need from you, being human, and continuing through that journey and continuous research and continuous education and all this other stuff. So Big time. I appreciate it, Nick. A lot. We covered a lot in those 30 minutes. So everybody out there, once again, this is the corporate security translator and the author of So You Want to Get Into Corporate Security, coming out June 30th. Pick one up. We'll see you very soon. Take care. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.